Welcome to X-Men Evolution, episode 20 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. I got it right that time. I'm Rod. I'm very tired, but only mentally. I actually have a lot of physical energy right now, even though I just try to play with Lucy, my cat, and wear her down so that she wouldn't get all rambunctious during this recording.
And when this episode goes live, we are going to make sure that Rod posts the picture where his cat is giving him a death stare because we were looking to see if her Christmas sweater was officially Funko licensed or not. We couldn't find it, but we did successfully piss off the cat.
Yeah. It's kind of like when your mom, when you're a little kid, like looks for something in your clothes or something, and you're just like, what are you doing, Mom?
Yeah, Lucy just gave Rod that look. And I am JC, and I don't think I have anything to promote or anything like that. All I know is it's been a day already, so let's get these through 2 recordings because we need to start stacking up a few episodes before the holiday.
Yeah.
So, Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode we could find, along with some bonus episodes. Our first series started out with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, which was building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we thought was coming to Disney Plus in 2023. And since it is November and we don't have a release date, we got to the end of Loki. There was no mysterious drop this week. And we got the release for Echo in February of 2024. I think it is safe to say that it is not happening this year. And since it's not, we had to fill in with some other shows. So we jumped over to X-Men Evolution.
Yeah, and it also makes sense for them to drop it next year, too, because I think as of right now, Deadpool is the only Marvel movie coming out next year that's, like, scheduled.
Is it?
I think it's the only, which is kind of cool. Everybody that I know in my circles has been kind of like, you know, it's kind of nice to have like a central thing. I think there's going to be other stuff like Kraven the Hunter and thing, you know, like adjacent stuff.
That's
like,
like
the only like MCU. Well, you know how it is now with multiverse branches and all that stuff.
Sony's not allowed in my multiverse.
Yeah, but Deadpool is officially MCU, and it's the only one actually slated for that year.
And it's slated for Comic-Con again. It is slated for
the release.
Yes, it is the Thursday of Comic-Con.
That's gonna be wild.
It's very rude of them.
And as of right now, wait, are we bringing this up now? Yeah, I'll go through this and then we'll bring up the next thing.
Fuck it, bring it up, fuck it.
Well, let's go into it. Some quick reminders: we recap show best series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episodes, and come back. We're currently not sponsored or affiliated with Marvel Animation, Disney, or Disney Plus in any way. Also, as of recording this, SAG strike is over, so
yeah, it
we're
is.
Talk about a bunch of shit. I know there's a little controversy over the terms, so hopefully there's not a restrike or something. But as of right now, everything's good. The Marvels just came out. We're just going to tell you to skip to enter computerized voice. How long?
18 minutes and 33 seconds.
In the Marvels, which I know we both thought was a pretty okay movie.
It was a solid beat to me.
To me, it was like along the lines of like the Ant-Man movies, you know, like far from the best, but not the worst by any means. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I would not put Quantumania on the same level as this. I know you didn't have as many problems with Quantumania as I did, but I thought this was definitely better than Quantumania. I thought it was better than Quantumania. I thought it was better than Love and Thunder. I thought it was better than Multiverse of Madness. I thought that it was a solid superhero story.
I'm glad you say that because, like, for me, there's a lot of, you know, comic history that I don't have in things, and so I could see it being better than Quantumania because Quantumania, I feel like there was more to tell. But I guess I meant like for Ant-Man movies, like just as like a whole, like when you're setting your expectations, I think it's like along those levels. It's not like the most crucial thing to know, but it's fun and everything kind of ties together.
So that was a loaded character for me, which, you know, you've talked about it, Rod. You've never read a comic with Kang in it ever.
Yeah.
So for me, as somebody who, you know, been buying books weekly since 2005, more than my share of Avengers stuff, and he's usually a pretty big, cool moment when he pops into Avengers comics. Him just being like the one who remains at the end of Loki compared to the shitty joke variant version that we got there, I was offended. But we're talking about the Marvels.
Yeah, and so, of course, hopefully you watched Ms. Marvel, so you already know that Kamala Khan is kind of the first mutant that's identified. Well, the first one that's named a mutant. I guess we technically had, why can't I remember his name? Namor, I had it on tip of my tongue, who is also a mutant, you know, but Ms. Marvel, like, she was called a mutant. They had the X-Men theme song play behind her and stuff.
Not very subtle, but yeah.
Yeah, and so if you stuck around for the mid-credits scene,
Which, why wouldn't you at this point?
Right.
Like, I still saw one person in my theater get up as soon as the credits started rolling, and I'm like, have you been to a Marvel movie in the past 12 years, 13 years?
And I know people make fun of these kind of mid credits all the time, but I mean, I think it was genuinely exciting. The audience I was with, we were on like the early Thursday showing in Burbank, you know, so there was probably half a new rock stars in the audience with me and stuff.
The remaining half.
Yeah, right. Well, some of them are still there part time. Anyway, we see Monica waking up on the other side, other dimension or whatever, and we hear someone's disembodied voice, and then when the camera cuts over, it's fucking Beast. Like, no like hints or nods, no like, as far as we know, he doesn't die 2 seconds later. You know, like.
Oh no,
Xavier
not.
Well, because like the last thing we got was Xavier, but he was literally just a cameo, and I know he's a cameo, and Beast is a cameo in this, but it genuinely felt like this was like an actual introduction, and I hope they don't just like, they don't continue this scene in whatever next movie they have, and then he just dies or something. What was weird is when I messaged you about it, I thought it was a whole new character, actor, everything, and I looked up afterwards, and it was still voiced by Kelsey Grammer. Definitely not his likeness, but I don't know. That makes me worried now that this is just another like multiverse thing that they're just like, okay, this is a throwaway thing. But I don't know. It's exciting seeing the X-Men in the MCU now.
Totally fair. Yeah. The part that I'm literally looking up, and I'm a little upset with myself that I didn't check it out in advance, is looking to see when Beast was an Avenger, he was on with Harold Danvers, but not at the same time as Monica Rambeau.
Okay.
So obviously, this is the mom there with her, but there wasn't the crossover of the time frame when Beast was an Avenger, and when, whether you called her Captain Marvel, Photon, or Pulsar, they were not crossover with each other.
I forgot about that name.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kamala listed all the options off. So
yeah, I wasn't familiar with Binary before, but I learned after the fact that she's a fairly new character. I know Captain Marvel goes Binary, but I guess Maria that we saw in the end credit, that mid credits, was like the Binary character.
Her outfit was yeah,
and I like this implication because after this, the Multiverse of Madness, it's kind of like Carol is the odd one out, and in every other multiverse, or majority of the multiverses, Maria is Captain Marvel, so it was like a fluke that in 616, or supposedly 616, Carol ends up being Captain Marvel.
It's all confusing.
Yeah. But then I guess a little tie into Loki, and we were already given the spoiler.
Yeah, we already gave a spoiler, so.
So I love the way that ended. It's like, it's kind of the best for everybody, where it's like now I feel like, and hopefully they go with this, there's no multiverse expectation, but there's an explanation, if that makes sense. So like all these movies have more freedom to do what they want without having to worry about tie-ins, like hard tie-ins to other movies and stuff.
Right.
But also now they don't have to spend every single movie, which was arguably one of the big problems with Phase 4, is like every movie had to address a multiverse to explain how things were happening. And now with Loki I think he became a god of stories, is what I saw.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
yeah.
He's literally holding the timelines, and he got his. I mean, that was probably one of the most like, second to like Tony or Cap or whatever. As far as villains, definitely the best like kind of closing of a chapter. Even if we see him later, like, because he got the thing he wanted when we first met him, a throne. But it was not. What was it? Mobius said, "Most purpose is more burden than glory." So he literally had like one of the biggest burdens in the universe or the multiverse.
It was kind of a pseudo ripoff of the Spider-Man line. I felt like.
Oh really?
Yeah. Power of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that just kind of rings true with just the superhero thing anyway. So with that, the tree thing happening and stuff, which I kind of addressed this, I think, on social media, but if anybody that knows me, or if you saw me post this, I had mentioned like a decade ago I wanted to get like this tattoo thing, and then like watching the Loki finale kind of cemented the idea. But I originally wanted, like, I have two right now. It's one the cassette and one's like a slogan on my arm. The other thing I wanted to get like a tree on part.
And there's the one we haven't told you about yet.
Yeah. I wanted to get like kind of a tree that had like open branches, so that if there were like big life events, then I could like complete different branches with different things, And I never really knew about it, but then I saw that imagery. I was like, yes, that, like, that's
yeah.
it.
And I also on that one wasn't even sure if that was supposed to have something to do with like the world tree, which was a whole thing in Norse mythology and stuff like that. So.
Oh, is it the Yggdrasil?
Yeah.
Tree? I've heard several people reference that, and it would make sense for
Yeah.
for Loki. But yeah, a lot of mutant news in
But-
the MCU.
Yeah, and the one other thing I wanted to add, I was shocked that Beast was the first of the original 5 we saw.
Same.
And
but
I think it's probably because of how distinct the imagery is and stuff like that. It's like it's unmistakable. And I think to your point about everything in the phase needed to explain multiverse. It was like, this is just something that's easy for people to be like, X-Men. It's so quick and identifiable. I would say because we don't know who the casting is going to be for the other ones, and regardless of it being Kelsey Grammer's voice, they can easily switch out this Beast because it was all CG. So it was like, cool, if we do this and it's on a whim, we don't have to have it be Kelsey Grammer, or we can switch up other shit. But if you had a Jean, a Scott, an Angel, or a Bobby, you're like, cool, I'm committed to this person now.
yeah, and it also most of those guys wouldn't be as like immediately identifiable.
Shy
Maybe
of,
Iceman, but
I was gonna say a really good Iceman, or you just get like the iconic classic version of Cyclops with the uniform, then maybe like whether it was, you know, the Jim Lee era or the Joss Whedon era for Astonishing, like those two outfits are like, okay, cool, that's Cyclops. But yeah, I mean, we've run through a few Scotts, we've run through a few Jeans so far, so I think they made the right call with Beast.
and ain't nobody want to see Cyclops be the first X-Men. But also, they probably haven't casted them yet, right? Because
Oh, I bet they have not. Yeah.
because you know the Marvels, even though filmed a couple of years ago, that mid-credit probably wasn't done until like very recently, and the last like the half of this year has been, you know, no promo strikes, no casting,
No shooting anything. Yeah.
anything. So yeah, all the pieces make sense. You know, like you said, Beast is most identifiable immediately, and they can see. I don't know what the rules are for that stuff, but it feels like it's easier to have a CG character than try to really quickly film a person in the middle of a strike or something, or in between the margins. and
Well,
stuff,
I
you know?
mean, yeah, if you tried to film him during whatever they did had to be done, like at least his VO recorded and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was really cool, and I like the movie. If anything, I felt like the movie was a little bit rushed, but that was the trade-off for it not being like 4 fucking hours long or something. You know, I actually appreciate like a short superhero movie. It's just
Yeah.
nice and sweet. And then there's your favorite part. It's not mutant related, but
It's definitely not mutant related. I mean, honestly, it was a creative choice. I didn't agree with the creative choice. I thought it was kind of corny to do the
Yeah.
Planet of Dancing
Oh, just
in
singing.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
basically
That-
a musical planet.
But it's like that took it from being a B+ to a B to me. It was just it didn't feel like it meant anything. Like, why is the water planet the fucking singing planet? Like, there was just a total disconnect, and it was there for the sake of it. I think I've said this online to a few people. I also don't like, and this goes for the Kree too, this is not just singing planet. I don't like when alien species look like humanoids in just different clothes.
Oh yeah.
Like Kree, everybody's fucking blue. Sure,
Yeah.
cool with that. But if it's like, this is an alien species and everybody is just different races of human, that doesn't make sense to me. And it's just a clothing change. It's like, well, then why the fuck are we on an alien planet?
And that to the Quantumania's credit, that's one of the things they did really well. Is they had like a whole like Star Trek, Star Wars like variety of different, you know,
Yeah.
species, and they had like buildings that were alive and stuff.
My favorite.
I think I saw either Eric Voss or Maude Garrett talk about this. I guess that planet in the comics, they only spoke in rhymes.
Ooh.
And so someone made a creative decision to make it a full-on musical in the movie.
You know what else is a bad idea? A planet that only speaks in rhymes.
Right. And Maud actually,
Well,
she
you-
didn't like it either. And she said that her read, and this is not from anything official, this was just her read. She said she felt
Dope.
like some studio note was like, girls like princes and princesses and singing. And she's like, but we don't always need that. So I don't know if that was actually the thought, but that's what she got when she was watching it. And I was like, I guess I can kind of see that. I did.
I mean,
appreciate-
that is what most trolls online have been saying too. So I think that's actually one of the times where it was unfortunately, I think they did probably get that right. So
Yeah, and what was nice was seeing I forget his last name. His first name is Park, or his surname is Park. The Korean actor in there. I think he might be the most famous person in the MCU.
if he didn't have to sing, I would have liked his character.
Right. It also kind of did him a little disservice because his accent came really through the singing, and I'm not sure if like a lot of Western audiences were going to be kind about that.
I think the whole scene is so fucked that that's the least of their concerns.
Right,
also, Flirkin eggs. Michelle Waffle posted the egg earlier, and I didn't realize it was an egg. It just looked like she was holding a fucking brain in her
I
hand.
didn't even think about that. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, and I was like, "What the fuck are you holding?" I was like, "That's gross." She's like, "It's cuter inside." I'm like, "That's still gross." And then I saw it that night. I was like, "Oh, it's still gross."
That was a hilarious plot point, though. Of like, just especially because it was like Barbra Streisand singing the Cats song, and then just all those. They're basically interns, right? They're running around that.
No, those were full-fledged scientists, dude.
Well, some of them were, but weren't a lot of them cadets?
I mean, I think if you're literally creating the brand new space station that's only been around for however long Secret Invasion happened, which I think we've also established was supposed to be swapped in terms of timing originally.
It feels that way because he doesn't seem like a guy that just came back from all the Secret Invasion stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you like Secret Invasion, it doesn't seem like he came back from all that. But I think that was a hilarious scene. It was kind of like of all the things in the movie that were like, you said it was like a strong superhero story. It was like pretty.
I said it was a good superhero story. I didn't say strong.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
no, and the reason why I separate that is if you look at most comic books, most comics are good. You have a few that are phenomenal. You have a bunch in the middle that are good, and you have a few that are trash. So this was like, this could have been a 5-issue run of the Captain Marvel comic, and that's fine. Yeah. That's all it needs to be. You get the people who go, you give them a character story, you get some development out of it, or a big cliffhanger at the end, and I think we got both, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be, not everything is going to be, Dark Knight Returns. So
yeah. But what I was going to say was, like, the movie didn't have a whole lot of, like, plot twists or anything. So, like, there wasn't, besides the mid-credits, there wasn't, and, like, the sting at the end, wasn't, like, a lot of super spoilery stuff, but the Florkins and the cadets were hilarious. That was the unexpected thing. I think that was hilarious, just rescuing everybody that way. But and then there was a part for you at the end, I think, that hopefully made up for it, where you see Kamala recruit Kate Bishop.
Oh, that was a good John moment. So
and it was like, to me, it makes sense after the fact, but was like, that was also kind of unexpected. I was like, I didn't expect to see. I saw the pizza. You'll be proud of me. I saw Pizza Dog, and I was like, oh, there's either a Kate or Clint tie-in right now.
Well, I knew it wasn't going to be Clint because he's not under any additional contracts at this point. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But
we knew she was booked for multiple appearances after. So
right. And then Kamala, or Iman Vellani, is living all our dreams. She's like the Marvel fan that made it into the MCU, so she gets to do the Nick Fury speech. It's really cool.
I think by the time this episode comes out, or no, it might be, I'll post online, but she is doing a signing of her Ms. Marvel comics at a spot, Collector's Paradise, I believe is the store in Burbank or Glendale. I'll share it on her Instagram if it hasn't already happened. If it has, I hope you went and enjoyed it, whoever is listening to this.
She's so nice. I got to sit at a table with her at Critics' Choice. It was Asian Oscars, whatever it was. And she was great. She was really nice, took a photo with me and stuff. And she held the secret. She had filmed her Marvel stuff at that point. Didn't peep a word at that time.
So she's the opposite of Tom Holland with that kind of stuff. Got it.
Yeah, anyway.
On that note, we're here for an X-Men cartoon. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, because I refuse to call it X, and Facebook. Even though I think Rod is not even posting on, I feel weird saying it, on Twitter. You haven't logged in forever, or have you like popped in to see if there's been an earthquake in LA?
I haven't logged in since, I don't know, like months. And then when I upgraded my iPhone, I didn't even update the app. Like, it's still like just sitting. It has the new logo on it, but it doesn't have the login for me yet because I don't know. It seems like such a mess. It was already like not great anyway. So.
And of course, make sure to follow us on all your podcast services in case you somehow found this or a clip on YouTube and that's how you're here. But yeah, following us on the podcast services is great. Rating us on them is even better. And I also throw up comment, question. That's not the right wording. I'm not using the polls, but I'm using like the survey tool at the end of it of just like, hey, open up, tell us stuff, and we'll talk about it. I think that only works on Spotify though, for what that's worth.
That makes sense because we're using like a Spotify like distributor.
Yeah, it was a thing that was not called Spotify. that was powered by Spotify, and then they fully took it over, and then it became Spotify for podcasters. So
Yep. Everything's becoming one giant company.
that's the joke I think that Toy Galaxy uses when he talks about Hasbro,
Oh, really?
because it talks about all these toy lines that have been around for, decades. And then at some point, usually in the mid 2010s, that toy line got acquired by Hasbro.
Oh,
So
that's
his big joke is until all are one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Transformers. I know that one. Oh, also, to anybody listening, I don't think you're going to hear it, but hopefully you don't. Either my landlord or one of my neighbors has a dying battery in their smoke alarm, and I'm getting ready to murder someone on this block.
Do it.
I've gone to everyone, and none of them will fess up. But whatever it is, it's in some place that is echoing throughout this block. I can hear it at the end of the block. I can hear it at my house. I don't know how that thing in smoke alarms is the loudest fucking thing that pierces through.
Dude, I get anxiety when I'm scrolling through Instagram reels and somebody's audio has that in it, because every now and then it happens. Usually it's drunk kid who's drop kicking an oven at 3:45 in the morning, but then the smoke alarm goes off and I'm just that little tweak. I'm
Yeah.
I hate it. If I ever come home from work and I hear it happen, I will literally stop everything I'm doing and search for which of the smoke detectors is having that issue, because it will drive me insane.
It has been, because especially once you fixate on it, I can't let it go. And this has been almost a week now. And also, my living is I record music at home. It's great.
I think in the city of Los Angeles, that is no longer considered a felony. If you kill that person, I think it's just a misdemeanor.
Okay, very cool.
If it interferes with you making entertainment, we make exceptions here.
There you go.
This is not legal advice. Please do not actually murder somebody and say that our podcast said it was okay.
Now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 7, titled African Storm. It aired November 17th, 2001, and currently sits at a 6.2 star rating on IMDb.
P.S. Almost 26 minutes into the episode.
Right. And this is a fitting episode for me to head up because Storm is my favorite character. I didn't realize, I should have, because of how these episodes have gone, when this aired, because I think this specifically, we'll talk about next episode. The next episode, I noticed something. I was like, that's odd timing. This makes it even weirder. Something else I noticed in this episode that was confirmed in the next one, the character I never noticed was Jubilee.
Yeah, you finally got it.
Mostly because she was more full frame, and I was like, oh, that's an Asian girl in a yellow jacket.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why in the last episode where I talked about the sound effect,
There's fireworks.
it was literally the same sound effect that she had for her fireworks in 92.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it also, now in hindsight, it's kind of like in Sixth Sense, where after you know the twist, you go back and you see all the stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
I remember now, once on this podcast saying oh, and they always leave Jubilee out, and you just
I said nothing. Yeah. Yep. So one thing, before we get into the episode itself, quick point out, if you go by the IMDb and the Disney Plus order, we are going in the right order. But there is a disconnect between that and what is appearing on the fandom wikis as well as Wikipedia, where this is being listed as the 8th episode of the season. Another one, which we will be recording in 2 weeks, is listed as the 7th. And I think whether it's a script order or whatever it is, because Stephen Gordon told us he was every 3rd episode, he is the next episode. So that means there is some sort of order swapping going on.
Interesting. You mentioned that after I watched that. I usually do check our spreadsheet, but today I was so fried from everything I was doing.
Thank God you didn't, and you just opened up Disney.
Yeah, I just opened up Disney and watched everything.
Otherwise, you would have had to watch an extra episode to to get back on. Yeah.
But watching these 2 episodes, I guess there is some amount of interchangeability between them, because there seems to be season-wide storylines, but not necessarily episode things. So it might have been more forgiving at the time.
And I think that actually falls in well with what we were talking about with Steven about the Buffy style inspiration. Is Buffy would sometimes have what we would refer to as Monster of the Week, and there were certain things that would carry over from episode to episode, but in the middle you get to these little battle points. It didn't matter if it happened in episode 6, 7, or 8, as long as the things happened.
What would be interesting is when Steven said he did every 3rd episode, it'd be interesting if internally with the writers, they just made sure that every 3 cluster of episodes
had beats to it.
If they referred to each other, it was within that cluster, so they could kind of interchange. That would be a nice way to give themselves some margins.
Well, I'll do some research and find us a fucking writer, Rod. I don't know what to tell you.
So this episode opens up on an African tribe doing some sort of like ritual or ceremony. I don't know if I can. I don't have the authority to vouch on how authentic this is, but for 2001 cartoon, not bad.
There were snake idols or statues, whatever those were. And I will say, to jump ahead slightly, there was the character, I'm pulling up the name, the Hungan.
Hungan, yeah.
Yes. Who I did look, it was not solely a part of the show, but the Hungan was known as a witch doctor within voodoo.
Okay, cool. I made a note here that he was at least the leader. I didn't know what the official like title was for him. He had the skull painted on his face. And also when they named him later, I was like, that's too specific not to be an existing character.
Well, and sorry, I'm referring to that title of in tribal culture,
in like real
not
life.
Not saying a Marvel character. That is a title within the tribal structure. Is at least what I was able to glean from the Wikipedia research and stuff like that had nothing to do with the X-Men. So.
Okay, and then this tribe, they named themselves, I'm going to butcher this name.
Bantu.
Bantu. Okay, you said it.
Bantu, which I did not find anything about them. Like, there were a few autocompletes, so I think it may be a word that has meaning within a certain language, because I did see it pop up, but there was nothing outside of reference to X-Men. It may be inspired by the Bantu tribe, Bantu, which that one was what the autocomplete kept trying to show me results for.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, but I don't know enough about tribal culture to be able to speak with any level of authority about that. That's just what we were able to find.
And also in this show, like New York is kind of this conglomeration of like both on the coast and in the city and all this stuff. And so this, even the Hungan says like he's going to take over Africa, like as if it's like one small island and not like the largest continent on Earth. He says that they have found the Wind Rider. They don't extrapolate exactly how, if it's mystically or they did it, through research, but he said 10 seasons, and I wasn't quite sure if that was 10 years or...
So I went back and checked on that, because at some point later on, they do mention 10 years, so it's, yes, he was interpreting season as one calendar year is how that went through. The other part that I think I pointed it out when we were having the fight between Storm and Mystique in the season 1 finale, where she referred to her as the Wind Rider, and I had mentioned that was something she had been called in the comics. Here was somebody from the tribal culture that was calling her that.
That just connected something for me that I think we were supposed to like interpret from it, but they didn't outright say it, that Mystique had something to do with all this.
I did not get that at all, but
when we get to it, I'll bring it up. But I didn't think about that until just now, especially because of
the shit.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's
interesting.
Yeah. Let's keep going. They were burning a statue of her in effigy. Yep.
Yeah, because they later revealed that there was a statue of him, I guess?
It was the snake statues earlier. Okay. So he was bringing those back in getting rid of her.
Yeah, and then they wanted to really like make it apparent that it was her, and so they like actually faded to like a photo of her in the thing, and then the credits rolled. It was the same as it usually is. Then it opens up.
Yeah, I'm curious if it switches in like season 3 or 4.
Probably, yeah. It opens up at the school. I don't know if this was just a different angle. I thought it was a mansion at first.
I thought that too. Yeah. Okay, I'm not crazy. I did think it was the front of the mansion too. There was something about the structure, and then I immediately realized, because you see Jean walking out with a cafeteria tray, they were at the school. Okay, I'm not crazy. Okay.
And I actually rewound to see if it was like an error. I was like, no, I guess that could be a school. But yeah, it was just a weird angle. It kind of had that like the White House setup, with like the big middle section and the 2 side sections. But yeah, Jean's, this is essentially a scene out of Mean Girls. Jean's looking for a seat at lunch, and she sees Taryn and Scott, so she tries to dodge them by turning around, but Taryn sees them. She seems, the way they play her, she seems to be genuine, like she's not trying to be mean. Scott is.
I don't know if he is. I think he's enjoying it, but I don't think he's trying to be like, I mean. Yeah. I think it's like, that's like, I want to show her that I don't need her, but I don't think it was a rub it in her face. Not a rubber in her face. That's a very different.
That's later. And then Jean tells Taryn and Scott that she has to go find Duncan, which we never find out where he is. I guess we're supposed to get the impression that he's kind of a douche anyway.
But then there's like this long, awkward pause. It's like a 5-second pause of just like nobody knows what to do or say, and she's like, cool, I'm out.
Yeah, that was my note too. It was like awkward encounter, and that was the only line of the note. But I guess if I remember high school right, most of us, at least my school, we had like our regular tables and stuff. But I guess if there was a scenario where like someone wasn't there or the group got broken up somehow, then and you had to like search for a new group, there would be like those awkward, like you sit down, you think you're welcome, then you suddenly realize you're not.
Well, it also got nice enough outside that they're eating outside instead of inside the cafeteria too.
Oh yeah,
because remember the cafeteria that Blob destroyed was an inside cafeteria.
That's right. I grew up in Indiana, so we never had nice enough weather to eat outside.
Same.
We're always inside.
So as she's getting up, Spike goes by on his skateboard, grabs something off of her tray. And I just have to point this out because I don't think I realized it until this episode. For a kid who is very rebellious and doesn't seem to give a shit about a lot of things, he always has full pads and helmet on anytime he is on the skateboard. And that has to be something with,
sensors.
The network's standards and practices, because there's no way that character would do it if they didn't require it from standards and practices.
That does track. Because, especially that, I don't know if it's still like this, because like I said, I haven't like had to raise kids or anything, but I remember as a kid, there's things like that they, even though they're fighting aliens and all this shit and stuff, like, but we got to be safe when we're on skateboards because that's something a real kid would do.
The thing most likely for a kid to be able to replicate from the mutant show. Yes.
Yeah. And I think I interpreted the animation right, but when I went and looked at it, it looked like he stole a roll, which is kind of a lame thing for you to steal if you're going to take anything off a tree. But maybe that was the only edible thing from the school cafeteria.
I think it was just whatever he could grab as he was going by, Yeah, and Jean is spiteful, and she telekinetically trips him, and he goes across an entire table full of people. And then we see Principal Kelly, who doesn't even say anything in this episode.
Oh.
I want to know so much more about Principal Kelly, and we get nothing for most of the season, I feel like.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay that voice actor this time. You assume that Evan got detention or something or whatever, because the Storm finds out about it later. And then at the mansion, Storm is pacing in the danger room. This was a little bit confusing, but it makes sense later. You think I thought she was there because she was like contemplating something, because she was hearing voices, or you hear voices in there. But then you quickly find out when Evan gets in there that she was actually waiting on him for danger room practice. One
thing that does stand out is as they show back at the mansion is surrounded by fog.
Oh yeah, I forgot to write that note down. At first I didn't think it was that important, and then there just kept being fog.
Yeah.
And it was very purposeful. Yeah,
so that was like the transition, because we saw there was not fog around the kids when they were having lunch. So something happened between noon and let's call it 4 o'clock that afternoon.
That is weird, because even on like the coast, if it was going to get foggy, it'd probably be at the ends of the days, right? Either earlier or later, not necessarily in the middle.
Yeah, like you get towards like a twilight, or it felt like a weird time for fog to pop up.
Yeah. And so Evan gets there late. Storm's a little
she's
upset.
Pissed.
Yeah. Because I'm guessing he was substantially late because he was probably in detention.
Which, let's flash back to when we were in school. If that happened, you weren't calling anybody. Like and especially somebody who isn't like getting picked up by their parents, and obviously he's probably like, I either ride back to Cyclops or I skateboard home, which we've seen him do in the past. So it's like, you don't call to say you're coming home late. You just come home late from being in detention. So you're getting in trouble twice. You're getting in trouble for being in detention and then for not calling.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, because there was the best case scenario is there's a payphone at the school, but that's assuming you have change, but also you have time between when you got in trouble and going there. You're probably not. And that was also, weird thing about the 90s, or I guess early 2000s.
2000s, yeah.
The teachers wouldn't necessarily care that you contacted your parents. You just be like, you're in trouble. Get in detention.
oh, you have a ride you have to catch? Get in detention. I don't care.
No, I specifically remember part of the punishment of detention is if you were like in sports or show choir or something, or anything extracurricular, you just missed it. Like that was the punishment. If you got detention, you missed football practice, or
right, and then you got screamed at by your coach or whoever. Yeah.
So Storm's like, oh, well, all right, we better get to it. So she asked the danger room to start the storm catcher sequence, which Evan was like, I forgot. Do I have to catch you? I was like, you know what? That's a fair assessment, for that title. And she's like, no, you have to protect me. And they basically did the Tron setup.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. It was the Tron grid popping up.
I got the feeling that this was like a super beginning level setup, because we've seen some of the more advanced stuff where it's like you can't even distinguish it from reality, and this was like clearly like a simulated setup and stuff, and it looked like it was going to be an open hallway, because she was like, get me from here to there without being injured. And I don't know what adult would agree to that from a teenager. Holy cow, even with superpowers.
I would say it's the adult that could defend themselves,
Yeah.
and is in the program that is in the non-lethal mode.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, we don't know, like, maybe, like, the ends of the spikes are rubber-tipped or something like that, you know?
I guess even just the way she got captured at first, with the mechanical arms and stuff, I was like, man, they're gonna break her ankle or a leg or something. Like, I wouldn't want that either,
I'm going to chalk that up to Professor X's contractors, who are now dead, were really, really good at understanding, like, the tensile strength of people. So those things don't pull beyond, like, it's like a UFC fighter. Like, if they want to, they could break the other dude's arm, but they go just to the point before they break the arm.
If that scene was in The Boys, it would just be a person and, like, all the limbs, like, fly off.
I'm trying to think of how many scenes in The Boys or Invincible have had that happen at this point,
Right.
basically.
Spike is doing okay, but then he gets too cocky, and there ends up being, like, fog in it, so this was the foreshadowing from earlier with the fog.
Well,
Like,
he
he breaks away the mechanical arms of the
Right.
spikes.
And then he drops down into the ground because there's a trap door. And then he used his spikes in a creative way. He actually made himself like a ladder to climb up using his spikes.
Yeah, so that was, like, he seemed to be doing well. Then there was the fog, and, he was like, oh, Ani, I can't see you. And she's like, use sound. And it's like, that seemed pretty self-explanatory, like, follow the sound of her voice. But he just wasn't, like, clicking with it. And then she gets, like, enveloped in a box. And my, like, gut reaction is, like, anybody that knows Storm is, like, one of her, like, core personality traits is she's claustrophobic. And I think every iteration of her has kept that, And my first reaction was like, why would they build that into the danger? I understand if she was training, maybe.
Yeah,
they
how
want-
do I get through it, get out of
Yeah.
it, avoid it type shit. But yeah, it being there was kind of fun.
Yeah, and I was like, well, this is for him, it's not for you. And then, she's like, get me out of here. She was, like, not playing, and he started trying, but then she ended up just shorting out the whole program and getting pissed. And
Yeah, because she breaks herself out, and I would imagine there was some sort of safeguard that if anyone outside of Evan uses their powers, it's an end simulation scenario.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I just figured she just, like, lightning and, like, just shut everything down. And she was rightfully upset with him, and he was like, don't blame me, I didn't set off the box. And she's like, I didn't either. And then things get really sus.
Yeah.
So she throws him out because she's, like, facing her, like, biggest PTSD, and he's a teenager. So like, she tosses him out and he leaves. And so Storm,
She looks up at the center overhead room. That's like
Yeah.
her instinct. Is like, I need to check the spot where Xavier usually sits and tortures us.
and so she walks up there, and then you just see the horror movie trope of, like, the shadow running behind her just out of her field of vision every time.
Yeah.
And I think there might have even been that whispering noise again. And what was funny, the whole progression of my thoughts for this ended up being right. Because there's this joke amongst, like, all my friends and anybody I know that's, like, an immigrant kid in the States and stuff. None of us go to the dark room or the basement in a haunted house or follow a shadow. And so she's like, oh, curious. And she starts following him, the sound or whatever. I'm like, that wouldn't happen. I think she sees the shadow, or she sees it in her peripheral, and she's like, nope. She turns around, tries to get to the elevator. I'm like, there it is.
That is fucking survival instinct, is to get out of there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so she's doing it, and it's not work. Well, it seems like it's not working.
I
but
think
then-
that was like kind of that like build tension, anxiety
Yeah.
of like, oh no, it's an elevator in a house. It just goes a little slower.
Yeah, and also before she tried to flip the light on and that didn't work, so it kind of
Yes.
gave this impression that maybe the power's out. But we find out the reason that it was a little slow is because Beast was actually coming up, so it was probably like waiting on him or something to get in, and then he scares her, not because of him. He thinks it's because of him because he's like, oh, I get this a lot now. But it was like, she's like, nah, I've just been jumpy because it's just been weird.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, Evan's stressing me out.
Yeah,
Like
she's
she deflected it onto Evan.
I kind of get that though, because like she basically became the mother, So I always say like what's the acronym PUNK? Perfect uncle, no kids.
Yeah.
But, like I don't know how it would be as a dad. Like if I just suddenly became a dad of a teenager, I'd probably be stressed like that, hearing voices too, and
It's true.
so
Beast is like disappointed because he's like, yeah, I thought we were getting through to him. And he's like, yeah, about Evan. And he hands the progress report from school, which he found in the trash, which why was he going through the trash? I never understand that trope in TV. Like, how many people are going through the trash to find a crumpled up piece of paper?
especially not to get too gross, especially in like a teenage boy's trash.
I'm going to assume it was just in like one of the main living spaces.
I specifically remember because like one of my friends, like I was visiting them a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and he's a teenager, and I forget why, but they were like, "Oh, they had one of those. You should go look in the trash." They're like, "Nope,
Nope.
hard pass." I was a
I'm
teenager
good.
once. Not gonna do that.
If anything, I'm just going to drop a match in it.
Right. Yeah, so
so-
Storm says she has doubts that he's reachable, which is super harsh, even in private, to say.
Yeah.
Because, once again, I wouldn't be able to deal with it, but he's a teenager. I'm like, that's just...
And it's her flesh and blood, too. Like, I get Beast or even, like, Scott. I don't know. It's like, this is her nephew.
Yeah, and I guess this is just kind of fresh off her getting, trapped in the box and everything.
And maybe there's, like, part of it in, who knows, maybe if there are episodes that are out of order slightly, if the one that we're going to, like, broadcast in 2 weeks, he does fuck around and put people in danger, maybe then that makes a little more sense. But, like,
Gotcha.
I feel like aside from him cutting class with the whole Beast episode, he hasn't fucked up that much, has he?
Yeah, and he hasn't been worse than, like, Boom Boom or something,
I mean, it's very hard to be worse than Boom Boom.
Cuts to outside the mansion, and Risty is dropping off Rogue. Now that we know Risty is Mystique, it makes sense that they're, like, just, at least on Risty's part, like, kind of friends. But so this is what I connected earlier. So when Rogue is by herself, after Risty leaves, she hears the voices. Was Mystique, like, the informant? That's probably what it was to that tribe.
Yeah, I did not think about that in going through, but it totally makes sense. And then also talking about who went in and programmed the danger room to trap Storm. Originally, it was like, well, how would the people from this tribe be able to do that? Because there's no technology shown around them. But it would make sense that if she had figured out a way to get access into the computers from all the shit she downloaded.
Oh, that's right, because she has the DVD.
Yeah. Which she, in a little bit later part, mentions the claustrophobia. So it's like she knows about Storm's claustrophobia. So it would make sense that she could be the one who actually fucked with Storm this way.
Yeah, or at the very least gave the tribe, like, the intel to, like, how to get past all the defenses.
Yeah.
Even just, like, get close enough. Because otherwise, if she hadn't just dropped off Rogue, I would assume that she was the one that started it.
Yes, agreed.
But yeah, so that's interesting. That's thinking about it in real time, and the Rogue is like, that's weird, and it actually shows Rogue locking the door, setting the alarm.
And because we hunt for Easter eggs in this show, and apparently this show has nowhere near as many as 92 because there was not a Larry Houston on this team. X-Men 537, which the code was 537, did not come out until about a decade later. So it had nothing to do with it.
Some animator's pin number. Then we fast forward to later in the night. Storm is asleep. We're assuming it's kind of late. She's having, like, night terrors, and
which real quick, aside from Rogue locking it, did it feel like that was a throwaway? Like,
yeah, it didn't ever come back.
Or just to put Risty into 2 scenes in the episode to make her, like, a reminder of who she is? Because, like, Rogue hearing the whispers didn't feel like enough of a reason for that scene for me.
Oh, you think that she did it in response to hearing the voices? That makes sense.
Yeah, or like we're going to hear in the conversation with Risty and Rogue in a few minutes where she's like, yeah, she's been, like, on my back and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, was there a scene that was, or was it too long and they had to cut something for time and there was, like, an awkward interaction between Rogue and Storm in the lobby area or something? Because it felt extra. And not in the same way that there was, like, the subplot in the last episode with Nightcrawler and, like, the body swap stuff. Like, this was just, like, I don't know why that shot was there. So
yeah, I could see, like you said, them just reminding us Risty's there and who she is. But the extra part about, like, setting the alarm and locking the door and stuff, that did seem like it was a remnant of something else. Yeah, because they never really come back to it. Yeah, but the Storm is sleeping that night, and she's having, like, these night terrors, but you see, like, shadows, like, envelop her. So there's clearly, like, people surrounding her, and it didn't look symbolic, in the way of, like, at first I thought it was going to be, like, Shadow King or something, and I don't know if the Hungan is, like, an allusion to that.
I think it's separate.
Version. But Storm says it a little bit later that, like, it was actually, like, a physical presence, and so she wakes up screaming, and, same thing happens anytime somebody wakes up screaming in the house. Everyone comes running in. Like, Wolverine's the first one there. I would have thought that he would have smelled something, but maybe he just kind of, like, let that slide for storyline's sake.
Also, I'll shout out to the Marvel Evolution Wiki, who theorized that this is a signal that they're in some sort of a relationship because he's the first to run into her room with no hesitation, which I don't agree with, but I thought it was an interesting remark on their part.
I would like that. The Logan and the Storm in the main timeline of X-Men 92 seemed like, peers, but it didn't necessarily seem like, in a relationship.
Yeah.
These two, from the little we know about them, I think I like that relationship, if that is even a little bit true. And it also makes sense if they were the only other adults besides Charles.
Yeah.
10 years. You get to know somebody,
Right.
They both have horribly traumatic backgrounds, and both kind of gods in their own way. I know Storm kind of literally was, but Wolverine had lived through most of American history, and so
About a third of it, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, everybody runs in. I think Kitty also comes in, and then Xavier comes in last. Xavier
Xavier-
gets there pretty quick. I'm assuming he's just up anyway.
I
doing
don't
whatever.
think that dude sleeps.
Yeah. And then Wolverine. Actually, now that you say that someone mentioned they might be in a relationship, it makes sense because he does the full scout. He walks out to the balcony, checks things out. So one of the reasons that I mentioned I thought the setting alarm was kind of weird, because the very next scene is the windows open. So what does the setting alarm do in a house like that?
Front door.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's the front door, but this is a mansion where it's high security. There's literally turrets and stuff around. So an open window kind of anybody trying to get into the house probably won't be coming through the front door.
Fair. I don't know. The air circulation is trash, and it gets hot at night, and then you open the window. You can't wake up the entire institute every time somebody's hot. So
Yeah, no, I get that. I just it just that's why setting the alarm, if that wasn't there,
it's just weird.
because it happened back to back.
Wolverine can't find anybody. Xavier attributes it to what's going on with Evan, as Wolverine and Kitty have gone out. And Xavier jumps right to, maybe we made a mistake with him. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think he's fucked up that bad. And if he has, they haven't shown it to us.
Yeah, I think either they're just expecting us to believe through this exposition that he's caused a lot of trouble, or we're going to see an Out of Order episode where he did something worse than it was just a teenager. That was kind of annoying. He's like, maybe we should call his mother. We're both thinking. Well, I guess he's psychic, so he's like, I know what you're thinking, and I agree.
And we know this Xavier has no problem reading people's mind without asking for permission.
Yeah, and
He actually implanted that idea in Storm's head.
oh, that would be interesting. Man,
That would be fucked.
what if Xavier's the big villain of this series, and Magneto's actually the good guy? He's like, I was trying to save you kids from this madman.
And Magneto was right.
Yeah. Evan's outside the room and overhears it, which is very plausible. So that's what more surprising that Xavier would be speaking so openly about it, because like we said, in the mansion, anytime someone has a situation, everybody gathers there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to run over.
Well, especially when there was a panic and Wolverine and Kitty are running by. Yeah.
And is his aunt.
Yeah, exactly.
So so he overhears it, and that
Maybe
sucks.
they think he's just such a shitty teammate that it's like, oh, he's not going to come here, so it's fine. You could talk
Or they-
openly about how much he sucks.
Or they don't care. That'd be worse.
That would be way worse.
In the morning, Storm is drawing a bath, which, yes, Queen, because I don't know. I for whatever reason, maybe it's just the way I was brought up. In my head, it's hardwired. Showers are morning things and can be night things. But I don't know how many people take baths to start their day. I usually think of it as an unwinding.
I have lived in this house for 5 years, and I have not taken a bath in it once, so...
Man, if I had a tub, because I just have a shower in my place, I would at least once a week just chill. Because every once in a while, when a client sends me to a not even a fancy hotel, just any motel that has a clean tub, I'll soak in that shit, and I'll have the best sleep in a long time.
I bought
get it.
2 bath bombs that have not been used yet. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah, she's drawing the bath, and she grabs something out, but it's a glass bottle, which was a choice, because, usually you get shampoo or bubble bath or whatever it is, and it's in a plastic bottle, because otherwise shit breaks. She closes the mirror, and the skull from the dude's face is on it, and then she drops a glass bottle. I'm like, again, why does she have a fucking glass bottle? I guess
it's something.
something
just-
fucking expensive.
Yeah, it's gold infused oil or something. I don't even know if that's a real thing, but it's just something. It's shit that
Gold
my mom would have.
infused oil.
It's always something that doesn't sound like it makes sense, or you don't know that exists until you run into that auntie. I've had aunties like that. We're like, what is that? And they'll say something random. It's oh, it's this bee pollen from Central Africa. Something, get rid of wrinkles. It's okay, sure. It's $2,000 a bottle or something. It was probably something bougie like that.
So it was an early multi-level marketing scheme. Got it.
Oh, almost. Yeah. Well, even worse, it was probably for someone completely unlicensed,
Goop, basically.
and there wasn't even a website for it. But as soon as she reached into the medicine cabinet, mainly because we're already in that late 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s mindset. I was like, it's gonna be the mirror scare. It's gonna be the
It
mirror
has
scare.
to be.
And it wasn't the one I thought of where like someone
You were going to see the dude, yeah.
So this is more impressive. I guess it's because he's mystic. He's able to like materialize the image on there because it's like otherwise he's like drawing, like really fast.
I like to think that he actually drew it really fast and then disappeared again.
Yeah, and did it also super stealthily so she wouldn't even notice,
You didn't hear the squeaky marks from his finger on the mirror. Yeah.
Right. And then that fucks her up. So then we cut to like I guess the floor below that, and Xavier's like going down the hallway and he feels a drip, which that has to be a lot of water to go through the floor.
So I'm not gonna lie, I also felt like there was a passage of time there, and I don't know why, but I didn't feel like that was like that had to be a few hours. I felt like not that was not a quick turnaround.
Yeah, because so back when I lived in Delaware, or my first or second apartment, we had washer dryers in our apartments, and I was on the top floor because when I lived in those kind of apartments, I always wanted to live like on the top floor, so I had to deal with like noise from upstairs. So it was one of those units that was like a washer and a dryer, so you could just set everything at once. So like at that time I had a day job, so I would before work like throw my laundry and set everything, and then by the time I got home, everything's like done and just take it out. Something fucked up. One of the maintenance people didn't hook like the water hose in right, so the wash had actually just been like pumping water into the apartment all day. Like
that's the
entire
worst
day.
possible thing that could happen.
Yeah, and because it was the tube or whatever, it never stopped because there was no signal, because the wash, it wasn't connected to the washer anymore after it broke off. But it didn't leak into the people below me's apartment until I was almost home from work. Like I got the call as I was like on my way home. And so, like, I just know from that experience, like, that was water more than a bathtub flowing directly onto my apartment floor. And it took, like, 7 hours to get out. So you're right, like, especially in a nice house. Like, I was kind of in a shitty apartment, and that took a while. And so, like, in a nice house, for it to, like, drip through to the next floor, like, that, she had been sitting there, like, all morning.
That's what it felt like to me. It's like, it was not like, oh, this wasn't like she had it happen and 5 minutes later it's going down. It's like, no, that was, she's going through some major trauma right now.
Yeah.
No.
And then Kitty finds her. Xavier and Jean run in to check on her. She's like not even verbal. So once you get to your point, there must have been something else that happened. Even if they didn't, either they didn't like animate it for time, or they just expected us to like know. Because then the next thing, Jean like closes the mirror and just like take a look at this, and the mirror's broken, or maybe it looks like she punched it.
I got the impression she punched it, but maybe it was supposed to be like she slammed the mirror closed or something like that. You know,
they kind of left it up to interpretation.
Or she threw something at it, and that may have been one of those like standards and practices of like, hey, let's not throw something at a mirror because that falls into the what would a stupid kid do thing. So
yeah. For a second, I was wondering if they were going to come back to it and like show that it was part of the mysticism, like the whatever. But I guess it really wasn't even super important. But then they cut over to the high school, and this is the scene you were talking about where Rogue is talking to Risty about Storm, and suspiciously, Risty's like, yeah, and about her claustrophobia, and Rogue's like, how do you know about that?
Yeah,
I feel like maybe not all the kids even know about that.
Yeah, it was a little like I guess off-putting. Like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting it.
And then I think Risty's, or Mystique, I guess, logic is like, oh, I must have heard it in the lunchroom or something like that. It's like, but the kids, they're not even really talking about being mutants and in this institution, let alone their teachers, personal history and stuff. Because I'm not even sure if we're assuming that they don't know, that Risty isn't supposed to know that they're mutants as Risty, how much are they supposed to know about a woman named Storm?
Right.
Like...
But we do know that Rogue has slipped and said too much information to her, so she would at least know who she is. And, I would also interpret it as Risty kind of seems like she's in cool chick territory in the school because she got invited to Duncan's party and stuff like that. So, maybe it's...
accent.
Purely from her accent. And nothing to do with her being hot or anything like that. But
it's a combination, a little both.
But also... Kurt's a dumbass. Kurt could have said something. Spike's a dumbass. Spike could have said something. So
so Rogue is still suspicious. She doesn't let it go, or you can just see it in her face. Then outside the school, Scott and Jean are talking about what happened with Storm, and Kitty interrupts them, telling them like, "Did you hear what happened with Evan? He's emptying out his locker." And so then they all rush over to Evan to try to figure out what's going on, which is more fucked up. They didn't tell the other kids what was going on with Evan.
Yeah, I feel like you should have given some sort of memo to the team on that one.
Right. And before the team gets there, Kurt is already at Spike's locker, telling him, like, aren't you even going to try to fight it? And, Evan's already, like, pissed off, and he's like, it doesn't matter. It's not even worth it. Nobody wants me here.
Well, one part you did jump past was Aurora goes to Evan and sees him already packing, and she's like, so
right.
I guess you already know. And he's like, yeah, go fuck yourself, Auntie Ro. Like, what's he supposed to say there?
Yeah, she's, like, a little upset, but I guess she's kind of, she's dealing with her own stuff too, so like not everybody's like not in a good place. And I think I like that Evan, he cleans out his locker, but he just throws his duffel bag away in the trash.
Right. After Kurt, he's like, what? It's not like we're even friends. And Kurt's like, I thought we were friends. Like, I guess I'll go fuck myself too.
That was one of those blind rages. Like
Yeah.
I know adults like this, let alone teenagers, where like when one thing's wrong, everything's wrong.
Yeah.
And so I guess I kind of see that. I guess maybe that's something him and his aunt have in common. It's like, one thing kind of makes everything like the worst perspective. And back at the mansion, I forget what was happening, but like Cannonball pummels Beast. Were they playing something?
So they were playing football. There was a football
That's
that flew
right.
by. And it's foggy, so that's why he's caught off guard from it, because the
Right.
fog is still now constant. And they finally name dropped him as Cannonball. It took that long for Cannonball's name to be said in the show.
Yeah, in real time when I was watching it, I was like, I wonder if that's Cannonball. And then Beast is like, hey, Cannonball. I'm like, thank you.
I literally wrote Cannonball lands on him, parentheses, name drop, finally.
Yeah, and I think this was the scene where I was like, that's Jubilee. Because
Yeah.
she was standing behind him. I was like, yeah, Asian girl in a yellow jacket. That got to be her. And I don't think she says anything in this episode. It was just like a suspicion, and then, like I said, next episode it gets confirmed.
They basically say that Storm no-showed for what they were interpreting as a fog session, so they decided to improvise. And Beast is like, all right, well, I guess I'm your teacher. And then we've talked about, like, control. Like, I know I've said that phrase a bunch as being a big part of this series, especially focusing on the fact that they are teenagers. So it's like, cool, we're going to have a little exercise in self-restraint. And you see the volleyball net pop up, and it's like, oh, can you guys play without using your powers?
Yeah, and they're in the danger room, which I love that the danger room has a volleyball net built into the floor.
I'm not shocked by it, to be
Right.
totally honest. I feel like of any spot that would have it, it absolutely makes sense there.
It was funny because I was like, oh, what kind of training session is Beast going to do? And he essentially did the thing you do to, like, your toddler nieces or nephews. Like, let's play who can be quiet the longest.
Yeah.
And it immediately, because he even says, like, oh, to have one training session where we don't go to the infirmary.
And then immediately Sunspot spikes the ball into Berserker and just shit explodes.
Yeah, because he's like, there's no way you did it that hard without using your powers. Is part of his powers super strength? I guess they just don't know each other. They don't completely know each other yet. Maybe they're still manifesting powers or whatever.
I
so-
mean, I'm pretty sure Roberto has always been just like in very good shape as just a young teenager. It's like, I don't know. The Berserker is the character that there's like no information outside of this show for me to even reference. So it's like, I don't know. Is he just like all power, like all electric power or whatever it is, and just a total weakling and stuff? Like, all that stuff is an unknown to me.
Yeah.
So maybe Berserker's just a little bit of a bitch. I don't know.
He's just unhinged.
Well, I wasn't even saying that. I just mean he's just a wimp. He can't fucking take a hit.
Oh, there you go. That tracks.
Yeah.
So they immediately use their powers, and then Beast just kind of like he walks away with like his head in his hands. He's like, "Well, that was a nice try." I guess we assume
Yeah.
that all the kids went to the infirmary after that.
They're all
They
they're
never come
all
back to it.
horribly injured at this point.
Then that night, we specifically see it's 1:03 a.m. Storm walks out
This
on the
show
balcony.
has done that a few times too, where
Yeah.
you notice that like it's not just like it's not common times. They purposely pick weird times to put the alarm clocks at.
Yeah, I guess this one to me it was like they wanted to show like it was late enough that like everybody would be dead asleep.
Agreed. I'm more so pointing it out that they always pick a specific time. It's not just 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
Yeah,
It's kind of like
it's
the
like
same as
103.
like when you see a phone number show up in a movie and it's always obvious when it starts with 555. you know?
Oh yeah. There's the movie designated numbers.
Yeah.
Or I recently saw the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, and I never played the game, so I didn't know anything about it.
Is it?
But this, like, every few scenes had specific times pop up, and I was like, oh, that's got to be part of the game. You know?
It is.
And then I was at a YouTube gaming event, and they had one of the YouTube I think he's actually the head of gaming, Leo, had never played Five Nights either, and they came up with this great setup where
he killed children.
Well, the horror gaming panel was being hosted by the head of mental health at YouTube, which was brilliant. And she acknowledged it. She's like, yes, I realize the head of mental health is moderating a panel about horror games and how funny that is. And then Leo, he had to play the first night of Five Nights at Freddy's while answering Q&A from the gamers and stuff. And that's when I saw, I was like, those are the times. So yeah, those, like, the 2 times, like, click into that. If anybody listening, I'm sure it's probably random, but if anybody listening does happen to know if this, like, some of these times are numbers
significant,
the code number we mentioned earlier had something, or even if you're somehow tied to the show and you're like, oh yeah, that's like that animator's like kid's birthday or something, I don't know, like, just be fun to know, because things that specific, it's like
on the 37th of May I had,
or
so I'm sorry,
I don't know what 1 and 3 would be. But so Storm walks out on the balcony because, as we heard from Steven, it's a good place to think.
Yep.
And she has a flashback.
The show loves their fucking balconies, man.
Right.
Steven loved doing it.
It does make me want to get a place with the balcony, because that seems like a nice, like, you can still be in your room but not in your room kind of thing, you know? So she has a flashback, and she's with the same tribe we saw earlier, and she's summoning rain for them, but it's like more than rain. It like refills a river, and then they knock down the snake statues and put up a statue of her and the Hungan. He kind of seems a little miffed about it.
Yeah, he grabs like a jewelry or some sort of embellishment that was hanging off of the snake statue. Totem, whatever the appropriate terminology is, or
an idol or something,
some
sort of depiction. And that's when Storm kind of slowly comes out of like the daydream flashback, and there's like snakes at her feet, which is like, even if you aren't afraid of snakes, that's a nightmare when you're not expecting it, and there's a lot of them.
Because they also looked a little bit like cobras to me,
right?
Like they had the frill. And I'm pretty sure, even if they're not cobras, if there are other snakes that have a frill, I'm pretty sure those are poison as fuck.
Yeah. Those are like Indiana Jones level of like...
Sorry, venomous.
Venomous, yeah.
Yes, because venom bites you, poison, you bite it.
I'm sorry I forgot your name, and I'm sure you're not listening to this, although if you are, this is wild. I met a guy at one of the Patreon events who, he like raises snakes and stuff, and he was showing me his hands. He has bite marks on his hands like I have tiny scratches for Lucy, except that seems insane to me, because these when snakes bite, like, they always break skin.
Yes.
Like, there's no like little scratch or nibble. And he says he feels them in his muscle, especially on the hands, you know, and stuff. And he's like, yeah, they're not trying to be malicious. It's just sometimes when they don't see you coming and they sense the heat, they just attack first and then think later. And he says they let go as soon as they realize it's him, because it's like any other pet. They know their owners and stuff. But I'm like, man, that is a type of person that is able to handle that, you know?
All that came to my mind as an image for that was when in The Simpsons they talk about how Moe was a snake handler as his religion for years, and that was what his family was. And it's just his hand covered in like bite marks and band-aids as a bartender. So
yeah. That's funny. But yeah, so she wakes up to all the snakes, and so she like does what any of us would do if we had the power she did. She like flies straight up.
I would have electrocuted the motherfuckers. Right. I would not have flown. I would have zapped shit. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I have anger issues.
And when she gets that little bit of a higher angle, she's able to see that Evan is running away in the dead of night, and she starts to like go after him. I don't know why she stops flying though.
She also like yells for him to not run away, and it's like, why? Like, because your sister's going to be pissed at you? She's already probably pissed at you, if we're being honest.
And he's probably ignoring her. We're assuming either he doesn't hear her or ignoring her. Probably
I got the vibe that he didn't hear her.
Oh, okay. And
I feel like he, in a few seconds from now, when he sees her being chased,
oh, that's right,
that he's only seeing her for the first time.
And Storm runs into someone that
Mirambo.
Named Mirambo, yeah. And I wish they would have given him a little bit more screen time, because we don't get a whole lot of story of what's going on there. But he
has 3 shots, really. There's the shot at the very beginning where he's just kind of sitting there stoically. You have him here, and then what we're going to get to in like the climactic scene.
Yeah, and so he's basically trying to warn Storm, like, you can't leave these premises because they're going to come after you.
Yeah,
so,
turn back. It's not safe.
now I'm not even sure. It might have been a combination of things where like people were physically near her, but not as close as she thought. Like maybe they weren't on the grounds.
Or they were summoning things and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. And he's the one that actually name drops and says that the Hungan has come for you.
Yes, and I originally I wasn't familiar with the term at that time, so I was
Same.
like, is that the tribe? Not the tribe, but like maybe like the
A group within the tribe kind of thing.
yeah, like
Yeah,
the
I was
warriors or
curious
something.
about that too.
And so then we see Spike is hopping the gate to leave, but then he looks back just in time to see Storm being chased, which is super sus. So I guess that means that they were on the grounds then, so maybe
Yeah.
they weren't limited 'cause they were chasing her. But once again, like she's just not flying, that would be my like I would have flown to go get Evan. I would have flown to get away from these
Yep.
these people hunting me down.
And she
But-
tries to like zap them as they're like circling her.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of reminded me of like, the trope of like somebody in the woods and they're being circled by wolves. But she
Oh,
actually
yeah.
has a weapon, which is her lightning, but
Yeah.
she can't get them. And there's a part of this mysticism of the character in the tribe with the witch doctor that like she can't hit them. She's literally shooting
Okay.
lightning, which shoots
Yeah.
as fast as light,
Yeah. And the way they animated it too, like you can't tell if it was just done for budgetary reasons or the effect, but it was kind of stuttering. So maybe it was supposed to be something a little bit more mystic, where like they were kind of not phasing, but they were being confusing on purpose, and then they trank her.
Right. It's kind of like when you look at a image of like ninjas and stuff where they're all moving at the speed, and it's the view of the person who's feeling confused rather than if you were looking at it from the outside. It's
Yeah.
not as hard to follow kind of scenario.
You remember one of those like earliest memes? It was just a photo of an empty street, and it was like the 20th annual Ninja Parade.
Yes.
I always remember that. That's a great meme. So Evan does.
We
a
always
smart
got to be
thing.
careful with the original memes because half of them are not okay anymore.
Yo, our mutual friend Nathan Kessel, he had this great
Yeah,
idea a
yep.
few months ago
Yo.
where like because I'm the old YouTuber, show him like old YouTube content and stuff and we react to it. And some of the stuff was fine. Like we were watching some Granny Potty Mouth vlogs, some David Dobrik vlogs and stuff. Like not the ones where David tried to kill people, but and then I showed him. I won't even mention which ones. I want to get in there.
Yep.
I showed him one of the earliest viral videos, and I had not thought about it in a while. And I still to this day don't think it's like that egregious. But he was like, he looks at me with the widest eyes, like, we cannot put this on the internet. And I was like, you know what? I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a nuance to this that doesn't translate to short form content.
Yeah.
Anyway, Evan does the smart thing. He doesn't try to fight this, craziness or whatever. He goes immediately to Professor Xavier.
And I'm shocked about that because I would have thought he would have just tried to spike them and then they would have disappeared or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And so Xavier, he wakes up Xavier, and they now know that Storm, man, I almost turned into like a Kiwi there for a second. I was like, Nar. Or is that Australian? They
I think
know-
you're having a stroke in the middle of the podcast
I-
again.
Okay, full disclosure, I was telling JC this before we started recording. I'm on like one of the largest music projects I've ever been hired for, and today we had to do something that required me to use like a lot of percussion music theory, and that was my worst subject in college. And also, I haven't used that specific level of complexity in like 20 years since I was 25 years whenever I was in college, and it was great. I'm super proud of what ended up coming out of it. But I was like, can we push this back an hour? I need to like eat and like reset my brain, and still like not quite enough.
And I am nothing if not accommodating for the person who's responsible for the audio of this thing not sounding like shit.
That's why I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the episode, I was like, I am not physically tired. Physically, I feel great for once, but up here, not a whole lot. Not
Fine.
a lot of pistons firing.
On the plus side, I'm hosting next week's episode, so you get
Yeah.
to coast a little bit on that one.
Sweet. So we wake up with Storm. What seems like a metal box.
That's a phrase.
Yeah. I think because if that's what
Are
it
you
feels like, 'cause, like,
are you projecting, Rod?
I mean, a little, but in this case, not. So it feels like that because like we don't know where she is. It's just like the inside of a metal box. We found out quickly it's like a shipping container.
Yeah, on a freighter.
But also, once again, anybody that knows Storm is like, oh shit, like, she can't be in there. Be you okay? And we get the sense, or I got the sense that even though the team gets there that night, it feels like an extended amount of time because the Hungan says that he broke her spirit.
Right, because she wakes up, she can't zap, she kind of shuts down, and that's when the Hungan arrives and uses his staff, which has like literally sucks the spirit out of her mouth.
I need to know more. That to your point before, like there's a lot of story missing. I need to know what that is.
I think in hindsight, having the context that Hungan has to do with Witch Doctor, that filled in that blank for me.
Okay, well, because I was at the time I was like, does that mean it's just her powers? Because that's what he wanted. Is that like her actual soul? But then later he's like controlling her, so it's like, is it just like a tether?
I interpreted it. Her soul allows him to control the body.
Okay, yeah. So it's like the Avatar kind of like puppetry or whatever.
Blue people, not airbenders. Yes.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean just in the general sense. Then we see Wolverine arrive on his motorcycle, where he has literally sniffed out Storm.
Okay, real quick. Did you watch Gargoyles back in the day?
Oh yeah. I'm actually playing I bought the remastered Gargoyles game for Switch.
Okay, the helmet he has reminds me of the logo from the pack.
I could see that.
Like I don't remember which one because they're not really referenced in detail in the current comics which are coming out. But one of the guys that looks like the mask or the logo that was on the chest was his helmet face.
I
to
can
me.
see that, yeah. Because it was also, I know that they were trying to like match Wolverine's like mask style, which is kind of funny because underneath the helmet, his mask just was still the same shape, whatever.
Yeah, it pops back up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to throw that out there because it's like, this whole show is nostalgia crack anyway.
Yeah,
so
it's great. So he like literally sniffs out Storm, and so he radios back to everybody where he is, and he's like, "Oh look, it's a good thing I don't wait." And I guess it's more credibility to what other people are saying about maybe they're in a little bit of a relationship or something.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, I know everybody wants to help, but he's like a little bit more.
Yeah, fuck it.
And-
I'm not waiting. I'm not letting this person I'm intimately involved with get
Yeah.
hurt. So
And then he runs into Marambo
yep.
and almost kills him.
They name dropped the ship, the Inyoka, I think is how it's pronounced,
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't catch that.
which I didn't find anything else relating to that, so I don't know if that's just a name or something like that. But
Yeah.
they're very big in this show about giving proper names to people and stuff that don't end up coming back in some degree. Like
Right.
like all those girls who are assholes to Kitty in her debut episode, like fucking Stacy, whoever the fuck Stacy is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I guess it was just the style for it.
Somebody that was mean to one of the writers.
Yeah. And then Marambo shares, and this is where we got the confirmation, that the village turned against Hungan 10 years ago, and that's why he is after Storm.
But this is kind of like the Morlock story brought to like Storm's origin in this sense, because like in the 92
Oh,
series,
yeah.
like,
It's kind of the inverse of it. Yeah.
like Storm had like unwittingly become a leader of the leader of the Morlocks. And this one, we don't know why she left, but she became the leader and has like not been there in 10 years. And so, yeah, I mean, kind of besides him being kind of evil, he probably should have been the leader if she hasn't been around in a decade. So
Especially if she made everybody praise her, probably because she was, helping out, making sure that there was water in all important stuff that these people needed, and then just left. And he's probably like, wait, so you came, got control, and then you bounced? Well, I guess I'm just fucked for a decade until I could slowly get these people back on my side.
Until I meet Mystique, who's a British teenager now.
Yep.
Yeah, they tell him about like her spirit getting stolen. Everybody just accepts it, and where she is, they go to that ship and try to find her, but they get attacked. This is just a big scene of everyone using their powers in the most optimal way against all these.
And they
warriors.
split into groups of two. That was like, and they've done this a little bit. They kind of showed it in it was Nightcrawler fucking up episode when he wasn't there for Rogue when she got shot in the back in the danger room. But you get Wolverine and Spike as a duo, Kitty and Scott as a duo, and then Nightcrawler and Rogue together. And Nightcrawler almost gets Rogue killed.
Again.
Yeah.
No, it was Evan last time.
Was
Sorry.
it Evan last time too?
It was Evan
okay,
last
my
time.
bad.
Yeah,
my
because
bad.
Nightcrawler got to the switch.
Oh yes, you're
But
right.
Evan
Sorry.
was late, and then
Yep.
they didn't get Rogue. Maybe that's why they switched. Or like,
Okay,
you're not
I
in
guess
charge
he
of
has
Rogue.
been fucking up for a bit.
Yeah, you're not in charge of Rogue anymore.
Yep. So obviously now Kurt is not in charge of Rogue either, or working alongside
Oh.
Rogue, because he teleports out of the way and she almost gets speared.
Now I wonder if that's why Nightcrawler's in this situation he's in the next episode. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
So lots of fighting, and these warriors actually put up a good fight
Right.
for being against like superpowered,
I
teenagers.
love how Kitty used her power, though. She actually did the whole thing of phasing through something and then knocking the person and stuff like that.
Yeah, because
like
she was being strangled, right, and then phase through it.
Yeah, and she got grabbed by a whip. He pulls the whip in, realizes she's not there anymore, and then she pops through like a box or something and then
Yeah.
whacks the dude. So,
I honestly don't remember the rest of the fighting stuff, but it was really cool.
I mean, like I said, Rogue almost died, so yeah.
Then they get to board the ship, and they don't even have to look for Storm. Storm just attacks Wolverine specifically because he's the first one there. And that's when I was like, okay, I guess it's not just stealing her powers. He's literally like
Controlling
puppeting her. It's pretty short-lived though. So Spike, circling back to the beginning of the episode, has, even though he's never done it successfully before, successfully uses sound to locate the Hungan.
Right, and he has a flashback to earlier with her saying, "I'm in your hands."
Oh, yeah.
Which we've seen them do a few times now. It happened in the Scott and Jean episode when she was having her power surge scenario, where something earlier does get said and brought back and stuff. So there is a little bit of symmetry with how this is being used in this series.
So this is kind of like, you know, the mom's adrenaline when their kid's stuck under a car or something, right? I guess it's like the moment, you know, like she's like lift the car or whatever, you know, whatever. Like, so he steps up to the occasion and locates the Hungan, and he throws a spike and shatters that crystal.
That dude did a terrible job of keeping that safe.
Right.
If it's that fragile.
I also, good call on Evan of either knowing or getting lucky that that's how that worked.
Right.
And just didn't kill Storm or something.
Oh yeah, imagine if that just released her spirit into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Literally kills her and causes a climactic storm.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh,
Imagine.
Man, I didn't think about that. Yeah, this is like a free. It's a freed spirit. That's also the last thing that happened was it was in like a terrified or bad mood. That's great. That's we get haunted places.
Yep. And then Storm uses a tornado and blasts the Hungan away. And I was like, is he dead? And then we get the reveal, oh, they all just kind of like vanished into the mist. And that's where I was also like, were any of them real? Or were they like summoned? Like, I was actually ambiguous to me on that part.
Yeah, because he gets sucked up into like a funnel cloud, like that Storm had commented on past episodes. So I didn't know if he was actually there, and then the rest weren't because they were able to fight him. Well, I think they were fighting them too. I don't know.
I think at the very least he was there, and there's a little bit of ambiguity. That's almost a word. Ambiguity that others may or may not have been part of the tribe. The only reason I think they were is because of Mirambo mentioning that the others were coming. So
Yeah. So she passes out, which I think this is the first time we've seen her do that in Evolution. It happened a lot in 92.
Did she pass out in the Rogue debut episode, maybe?
Maybe, I can't remember.
When she was falling from the sky from being like overcharged or something?
Oh, that
Maybe.
might have been the other one.
Yeah,
Okay. This one stood out to me though, like the iconography of it though, because Spike catches her, so it's like it feels like one of the 92 moments where she overexerts herself in the middle of the sky, and then one of the other team members has to catch her, and then we fast forward to I guess the next day where Spike's mother's there talking to Storm, and Evan's like, all right, I'm ready to leave, and Storm's like, well, you saved my life, so we're even, so I just talked your mom into like letting you stay, and his mom's not upset about having to make that trip.
I was going to say, why didn't she call her sister and just say, hey, we changed our mind. You don't need to drive down from upstate to the school.
Yeah. I guess they're sisters, so maybe it was like a little wine time or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I hope Storm was at least courteous enough to give the mom the option, and then the mom said, I'm going to come down anyway and see you guys. I hope that's the case. But then Evan is like all excited. He like starts skating through the mansion and stuff, and I'm just like, that's not the way to prove you're responsible, to skateboard through the hallways of the mansion.
Right. That was the extreme Y2K way.
Yeah. But then he bumps into the main team, and he's like, yeah, I got to stay. And then he starts to get like all cocky about, saving the day and stopping the shaman. And it's just like, shut up while you're ahead, dude.
Yeah. They don't care. That's not even their friends. That's family.
Well, and it's also like, of all the people to not be impressed by what you're doing, it's all the other people with superpowers.
Yeah, that also had to fight by your side.
Yeah, and this is the first one where you've been like the one who won the battle, really. Like, you don't...
Yeah.
You're not the MVP most times. This is not your basketball team, so...
Yeah. And then this is one of the happier endings.
Yeah, this was a feel-good one.
I like any story with Storm in it. This is kind of concreting. I'm still not as in love as I was with the 92 Storm, but... This one is great. It's not Halle Berry, and that's already like half the battle.
I would say for you, that's probably like 75-80% of the battle.
And maybe all of it. So
What's interesting to me is this was tied with Adrift as being the lowest rated episode of the series.
I could kind of see that because of what we were talking about, how much stuff felt like it was left out.
Yeah.
And then how that third act barely climaxed, it like they didn't live in the conflict very long. If anything, the episode is more about Evan being a problem at school than Storm through all her stuff,
I thought it was fine. I will say this is probably not one of those episodes where I'm going to remember any moments from it. And I think between Adrift, African Storm, and then the next episode, because there is no big bad of the episode that's like a known character, it's a little forgettable. And skip to Robot Voice.
1 hour, 3 minutes, and 22 seconds.
To avoid one more Captain Marvel spoiler, I just didn't like the villain in Captain Marvel because there was nothing about them I cared about. Like,
yeah, she wasn't great.
She was retconned as a character that I should care about because they were there when Carol was destroying a bunch of shit. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it's just another accuser.
She was essentially just like a gender swap Ronin.
Yeah.
Exact same motivation and everything. If anything, I forget if I mentioned to you or another friend, but like it felt like we were missing a second movie about the Civil
you
War.
texted me about that, yeah.
I feel like that scene that is revealed that she has like PTSD over feels like it was the climax of a second movie or something, and we were supposed to see like the whole thing leading up to the Civil War.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't, and she's the woman who played the villain was a great actor. I think she's Tom Hiddleston's wife.
Yeah, because they're the first two people to have something drop on the same day for them within Marvel.
That's hilarious. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, they had his finale and her movie on the same day.
Wow, what is that conversation like at home? Because he had like a masterpiece of an ending, and she was like the worst part of an okay movie.
It's probably, I love you, let's not talk about our show.
Yeah, you want some more wine? Let's go to Paris.
Just like, cool to get some of Storm's background. I think without the Shadow King involvement, at least in this portion of it, it's just less identifiable of being something I really am going to care deeply about. But it wasn't bad. It was just, it was fine. It was actually very much like the Marvels.
Yeah, and the only way that maybe some things would be more memorable is if like the Hungan comes back, and then he's just kind of like he's kind of like Spike. He's like maybe newer for the show, but then is a little bit more reoccurring or something.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm going to say I doubt that happens is I think I read in somewhere that every season has a Wolverine Origins episode, but the other characters do not get origin episodes in every season. I think they only get one origin episode each.
Well, I'm not even saying like in an origin, just like it sets him up to be more of a villain than just a Storm or something, or whatever. But I don't know. Like, we'll see. We're like, we always say we're watching this in real time, so I have no idea what's coming up besides the next episode. So thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them into the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post for this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on the podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox.
I think that's actually formally dead now. Like I looked at the analytics and CastBox is not listed there, so I think it might have died.
Okay, bye CastBox.